You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Hello and welcome to Shooting the Breeze, episode 34, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. I am Walt White, and this week I have a show that I want to try to streamline a little bit. We're coming down the wire, and you know, I sound like a broken record. I do this every podcast, but I'm coming down the wire, and I need to get this done relatively quickly. And so as a result, I'm going to try to condense this just a little bit, keep it closer to 45 minutes to an hour instead of that, hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15-minute mark. Those are getting kind of long. I want to try to scale back just a little bit, at least this week, and sort of streamline through it. So the first thing I want to talk about before I get into the news is actually a group of contests that I'm going to have running actually throughout the next 12 months. I was talking to a good friend of mine and co-founder of Stogie Review about doing some cross-promotion with my blog, and we decided on doing one contest a month for 12 months. And initially my plan was to purchase 12 copies of Julie Golub's Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting in Competition. And I was really excited about doing that. I'm actually leaning quite heavily towards purchasing a dozen copies and giving one away a month. However, on the way home from work today, I was kind of thinking and wondering, is it too much of a good thing? Should I only pick up, maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 copies of the book, and then pick up some other odds and ends and sort of mix them in, or do I want to continue running the same contest prize month after month for a year? One of the reasons why I selected the book in the first place was because I really enjoyed reading it, and regardless of your skill set, I think that there is something in this book for you. It's very friendly to new shooters, and for the more experienced shooters, there's little tips and tricks in there that could be very beneficial. Some nice reminders, things like that. And if all else fails, if you don't like Julie's writing style, or for whatever reason you just didn't find the book a gripping read, it's a great resource for referencing different types of shooting sports and things like that. And it's just sort of a great reference manual, especially something if you just want to toss it in your range bag. It's great. The quality is fantastic. And because I enjoyed it so much, I thought that was the absolute first thing that came to mind for a contest prize was, why don't I give away a dozen copies of this book? So at this point, I'm leaning really heavily to ordering a dozen copies and giving them away. But there is a possibility of me ordering just a few of them and then trying to mix other odds and ends in, to fill out the year. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. Keep an eye on WaltInPA.com for details. The first contest will run April 1st through May 1st, and then we'll start another contest. I'll list all the details and specifics and rules and things like that all on a blog post on WaltInPA.com. So keep an eye out on my blog for that contest announcement and how to enter and things like that. And also a big thank you to Stogie Review. Head over to stogiereview.com for a wide variety of cigar reviews and general cigar talk. Plenty of video content there as well. So definitely thank them for helping me out, and go check it out. Well, first up in the news, I have an item that's kind of interesting. I wasn't aware that New York was pushing for this recently, but if you remember a little while back, there was a lot of hubbub about this micro-stamping technology. Lawmakers wanted firearms to be able to stamp casing, or they wanted all this kind of weird stuff so that crime scene investigators could pick up a spent casing and see, your little serial number stamped into the side of it or something. Well, I thought that was kind of dead and gone, but apparently it's come up again in New York. And I came across this really interesting news article from Remington, sort of firing a warning shot. The title is the title of the article is "A Warning Shot Fired by Gun Biz." This comes from the New York Daily News. And it goes on to say, one of the world's major gun manufacturers is threatening to pull its plant out of New York over a gun bill pushed by Mayor Bloomberg. Remington Arms Company, in a recent letter to Governor Cuomo, said it may be forced to bail in the Empire State if a law requiring bullet casings to carry unique markings is enacted. Supporters argue that technology, known as microstamping, would help solve gun crimes. Detractors say it's unreliable, easily tampered, and costly. Remington has a manufacturing plant that employs more than 1,000 workers in the village of Lyon, about 90 miles west of Albany. Mandating firearm microstamping will restrict the ability of Remington to expand business in the Empire State, Company Chief Strategy Officer Stephen Jackson Jr. wrote to Cuomo. Worse yet, Remington could be forced to reconsider its commitment to the New York market altogether rather than spend the astronomical sums of money needed to completely reconfigure our manufacturing and assembly process. Jackson insisted that law enforcement, gun retailers, and law-abiding consumers throughout New York, if not the entire country, would be directly affected. Senate bill sponsor Jose Peralta dismissed Remington's warning as just another tactic being used to try and block microstamping, which is supported by many crime fighters. He said gun manufacturers didn't leave California and Massachusetts when those states enacted ballistics identification rules. Cuomo, during his 2010 campaign, called microstamping a common sense and pro-law enforcement gun safety law. The governor's position has not changed, even with Remington's threat to leave. Cuomo spokesman John Viasto said, microstamping is not expected to clear the GOP-controlled Senate, where Democratic efforts to bring into the floor have been blocked. The bill's best chance might have been in 2010 when Democrats controlled the Senate, but the Dems could muster the required 32 votes to pass it. So kind of interesting, and this came after there was word that the bill would most likely not pass in New York. So I don't know whether this was kind of just kind of an open threat or what the process or what the thought process behind this was. I'm really glad that Remington is stepping up and telling the government, look, this is going to cost us an astronomical sum of money to do this. It's failed technology. It doesn't work. And if you're going to require it, we're going to pick up and leave. I can appreciate that because I don't want those costs transferred down, to the consumer level, because ultimately someone has to pay for that retooling and all that. All of that manufacturer change has to be paid for somewhere, and it's ultimately going to come down to consumers. So if Remington can avoid those costs by simply packing up and moving, it's a shame that it would cost the company 1,000 jobs or the city 1,000 jobs, and it would definitely hurt the economy and the local economy. But I mean, you can't expect the company to just kind of bend over backwards for the state, which really isn't supporting them to begin with. So all in all, I thought it was a pretty interesting article. I'm not sure whether it was kind of an empty threat or if Remington will actually do it in the event that this passes, but for the time being, it looks like it's very unlikely that anything will come out of this in terms of the microstamping bill. Well, the second piece of news this week has to be credited to a regular listener, John Stein. He's a friend of mine on Facebook, and I saw him comment on a local Philadelphia news article, or actually I believe it was a Lancaster news article, and when he commented on it, the story kind of popped up in my timeline. It caught my eye. I checked it out and I added it to my show notes. The news article comes out of Fox 43, and it's entitled "Local Mayors Fight Proposed State Gun Legislation." It goes on to say, a proposed gun law before State House is getting some pushback from mayors across the state worried about increasing gun violence. The proposal would open the door for more lawsuits against some anti-gun ordinances. Lancaster is one of 30 municipalities around the state that has stricter gun laws than at the state level. Some gun activists are upset over municipalities limiting gun rights. To fight back, Representative Darrell Metcalf has proposed a state law that would make it easier for groups to challenge these ordinances. The right to bear arms is given to each and every American citizen by the writings of our founding fathers. The extent of those rights continues to be an ongoing battle across the country and the state capital. It's going to discourage municipalities from trying to do something about gun violence, said Lancaster Mayor Rick Gray during a rally at the Capitol yesterday. 4 mayors from around the Commonwealth descended on Harrisburg yesterday to oppose House Bill 1523. The bill would make it easier for people and groups to raise lawsuits against the 30 municipalities statewide who have stricter gun reporting laws. Those reporting laws require gun owners to report their guns lost or stolen within 72 hours or face a maximum $1,000 fine or 90 days in jail. It's going to take necessary money away from police, fire, and public works and use it on lawyers to defend frivolous lawsuits, Gray said. People can be secure in their homes. They don't have to fear the district attorney coming after them if they are defending themselves or their families, said bill sponsor Darrell Metcalf, Republican, Butler County. Representative Metcalf introduced the bill and says it's the only way to fight back against municipalities that are overstepping their bounds, once again reaffirming our God-given right for individuals to protect themselves, their families, and their properties from the criminal element that would do them harm, he said while talking about gun rights and the Castle Doctrine. Many believe this bill is written with the NRA in mind. The state Supreme Court struck down the NRA's ability to sue Pittsburgh over their reporting law. The bill would make it possible for people and groups not from the area or even involved in gun violence or the specific case to sue the municipality. House Bill 1523 got the go-ahead from a House committee in a 19-4 vote in February, but there have been no votes or debates scheduled before the House. A similar measure has been introduced in the Senate. So this is a really interesting news article for a couple of reasons. I think they're kind of going at this the wrong way, or they're spinning this. The anti-gun folks and even the news piece here are spinning this to make it look worse than it is. It's actually not bad at all. I'm highly in favor of this. You see, every news article that I read on this focuses on the lost or stolen thing. This representative, they want to take away our ability, or they want to take away this common sense gun law that says people go to jail if they don't report their guns lost or stolen. And that's really not the case. This is sort of an all-encompassing thing. We have a preemption here in Pennsylvania that says that the state regulates firearms. Municipalities do not. They don't have the authority. However, on more than it's not uncommon for municipalities to create their own gun laws and sort of call them common sense gun laws. These reduce violence. They do this. They do that. And they've got the media whipped up into a frenzy over this whole thing. We've got these mayors coming down in Harrisburg, rallying that these individuals in the NRA are going to incite violence, and this is only going to cause more gun crime, and the whole thing is just a giant sham. I mean, think of it this way: if you break the law, what happens? You either go to jail, you pay a fine, you're punished in some form. There is, the individual. If you can say, "Oh, I didn't know," but ignorance is no excuse, is what they tell you. So if an individual breaks the law, it's fine, or it's not fine. They're punished. But if at the municipal level, they can go ahead and break the law. They're violating state law and doing whatever they want anyway, and there's no repercussions. This bill creates repercussions. So when the municipality, sort of flies in the face of the state and creates their own gun laws, now there's some teeth involved. Now the municipality can be sued. And, in the case of the lost or stolen law, I don't think there has ever been a single case in which someone was tried for it. So, we have these laws in the books that no one's been charged. We haven't charged anyone for these laws. So, because no one was charged, no one can fight them, and they're still on the books. And eventually, they're on the books. Oh, look, this is doing stuff. We'll add more, and it becomes a sort of trickle-down effect for more and more laws to be introduced. The fact remains that I have yet to see anyone charged with a lost or stolen ordinance. I think across the entire country there have only been like 2 cases where someone has been charged over this, and I think they were in Ohio or something like that. I was reading at some point, but this bill sort of fights back and it makes the municipalities liable for their actions. And I think it's a great thing. I think the media is sort of spinning this and taking away from the broad spectrum here. It's not just about this one lost or stolen ordinance that really isn't doing anything. It's about the municipalities doing whatever they want and violating the state preemption. So personally, I'm in favor of this. I hope it passes. I'd love to see, the state preemption get some teeth and see some of these municipalities, take a slap on the wrist for it. I mean, ultimately, it's a slap on the wrist. It's not a lot of money, but maybe it opens the door for bigger and better things, sort of like Florida has, where the individual or the committee or whoever passed the bill is liable, not just taxpayer money going out. I think in Florida it comes down to whoever passed the bill and they're personally liable, and I think that's great. And we could definitely use that here. But I've rambled enough. There's your news article number 2. Well, before I get into reading the last piece of news, I want to apologize for that bit of microphone fade I had in the last clip. It was fairly long. I don't want to go back and re-record it. I'm going to see if I can mess around with it in the editing process and get rid of it. If not, then you still notice a progressive fade, and then suddenly I get really loud again. My apologies for that. I tried to do what I could. So, last piece of news actually comes from myfoxphilly.com. I saw this today and was kind of disgusted by it. And it is entitled Video, Philly Cop Chokes Corrections Officer. Goes on to say, Philadelphia, only on Fox, a controversial arrest is caught on tape when a Philadelphia police officer chokes an off-duty corrections officer in public who was legally carrying a gun. The corrections officer said he was out for lunch with his dad when he was approached by cops, choked by a sergeant, and handcuffed. The incident was all over a gun the corrections officer was carrying with a legal permit. It is now under investigation by police and corrections officers. The video shows the scene inside Freddie and Tony's restaurant on West Allegheny on Sunday afternoon when a police sergeant put a two-hand choke hold on the neck of a 27-year-old Joshua Arroyo. The chokehold incident was touched off when officers arrived at the crowded, popular restaurant looking for a man with a gun. The man turned out to be Arroyo, seen in the video patiently waiting for his lunch with his father, who is also a veteran corrections officer. Arroyo's lawyer says that when police asked to see his holstered gun, Arroyo showed them the weapon, his badge, and a license to carry the weapon. Police took the gun, and then the sergeant asked him to step to the front to continue the conversation. When Arroyo tried to go back to the table, the scuffle broke out. Arroyo was taken from the restaurant to the hospital complaining of injuries. He was charged with recklessly endangering another person and disorderly conduct for using obscene language. There were no gun charges filed. He provided the appropriate permit to carry a weapon, identified himself as a corrections officer, and then the tape speaks for itself, his lawyer says. Police won't comment on the incident because Internal Affairs is investigating. 2 witnesses told Fox 29 News Arroyo did nothing wrong. Police sources say it was only when Arroyo went to retrieve his gun at the table that the sergeant stepped in, used the chokehold, and placed Arroyo under arrest. Arroyo was not available for an interview. Corrections officers say Arroyo reported the incident to his superiors immediately and remains on the job. Police returned Arroyo's weapon and the bullets. He was released without bail. Officers did file a use of force report on the incident. So this is kind of disgusting to say the least. The video there's a video news clip on this, and they show surveillance video from inside the restaurant. It starts off by showing the father and son sitting across from one another waiting for lunch, and then the police sergeant comes in, and there's some talking. They show Arroyo get up and move off to the side, and him and the officer talk. I don't recall seeing the gun taken off of Arroyo or the paperwork shown or anything like that. But it goes in. The next clip that it shows is Arroyo walking back towards the table, and the sergeant sort of grabs him, spins him around, and grabs him by the throat with both hands. I don't know if the police have a list of permissible tactics. I mean, I know that I'm assuming that the officer just can't punch you in the face for whatever reason. So I'm sure there are acceptable uses of force and different techniques and things like that. The police officer grabbing the man by his throat with his 2 hands like he was trying to strangle him. I don't know whether that's in the Philadelphia Code Book or technique book for police officers. But the guy grabs him by the throat, is choking him. It looks like he's kind of yelling at him. And then after that, he's sort of pushed off to the side and spun around where another cop grabs him. And I guess at that point, the cuffs are slapped on him, and the surveillance video ends. So, it's incredible that this stuff is happening. Not all that long ago, there was an incident where an individual open carrying in Philadelphia was held at gunpoint, screamed at by police, degraded for a very lengthy period of time, and then there was a big lawsuit over it. I was really disappointed to see that the guy settled for $25,000, but in the back of my mind, I was hoping that this would do something for the city, even though that that payout was tremendously low for what happened. But there was reports that Philadelphia was going through the process of retraining their officers on open carry and the illegality of that and things like that. So here, I'm assuming that this is another open carry incident, because I'm not quite sure how there would be a man with a gun call if the gun was concealed. And here you've got, I don't know whether this is like a superiority complex or what, but you've got a police officer choking a guy by the throat, trying to crush his windpipe on surveillance tape. And here we go again. It's another open carry incident in Philadelphia. Or I'm going to assume it's an open carry incident. We can just call it another gun incident in Philadelphia, where someone legally carrying a firearm was not just detained and screamed at by cops, but physically assaulted by a police officer, by a sergeant no less. So, really sickening video. And from what I hear, this guy has hired legal counsel, and from what I hear, this lawyer's pretty big time in Philadelphia. So I'm really interested to see how this goes. Hopefully the city gets slapped with a huge lawsuit, and it's not just a small payout of $25,000. And maybe this time this massive lawsuit will make some changes happen in the city with its police officers and how they handle individuals that are doing nothing wrong but sitting across the table from their father waiting for their lunch. Alright, well, for featured content this week, I only have 2 articles. Part of that is a result of this Martin Zimmerman issue that's been going on lately, the self-defense shooting, or the claimed self-defense shooting. It's sort of dominated the blogs and news, and it's just been everywhere. And I really don't want to pile on and talk a lot about it in the podcast, so trying to circumvent it and find other things has been a little tough. That's why I've only got 2 pieces of featured content for you this week. But the first one comes from Sharp as a Marble by Rob Allen, and it is a post on USPSA shooting. And it's no secret that if you're a blogger, and I know about you, if you do detailed stage descriptions and critique your shooting, I'm like close to being your #1 fan. I love that stuff. I can't get enough of it. I try to learn as much as I can from it. I do as much as I can for myself. I record my shooting, I break it down, I talk about it, I point out my faults, I point out what I think is good. And when I see other shooters doing the same thing, I see it as a learning experience, and I love just taking it all in and seeing how people are shooting and seeing how they're improving. And in this case, it was another very well done write-up. I enjoyed it quite a bit, where Rob talks about a recent USPSA outing where he's focusing on speed, or he's focusing on accuracy and not speed, where he feels as though, well, the article is entitled "Slow and Steady Wins the Race." He didn't win the stage, however, he did very well with accuracy, and his speed was fairly good. He's focusing on seeing the front sight and focusing on it so that when the shot breaks, by seeing the front sight rise, he can determine where the shot was, where the shot went, placement on the target. That's something that I don't do, and I definitely need to start doing more. I mean, when the buzzer goes off, there's like a million things running through your mind, and even when I focus on being accurate and I let speed sort of fall by the wayside, I'm still not focusing on the rise of the front sight. I'm focusing on seeing the front sight, making the shot, and then seeing the front sight again and making my transition. I'm not paying enough attention to seeing the sight rise so that I can determine where the round struck the target. It's definitely something I need to work on. and it's something that Rob is working on and getting quite good at. It seems as though he's getting quite good at it, and it was just a really interesting stage right up. There's one video included. He does very well in the video, and it's certainly worth checking out if you're into competitive shooting, or even if you're looking to improve your shooting at the range. The things that Rob is talking about will improve your shooting, even if you're just standing still and plinking. It's a fundamental that it seems to get overlooked quite often, and I found it well done and just a pleasure to read and watch. For the second piece of featured content, I have a post from Miguel over at Gun Free Zone that I came across today. On my lunch break at work, I was browsing through Google Reader and I came across a post by Miguel entitled "My Wife's Kahr CW9," and he talks about this Kahr CW9 that his wife picked up for carry, and he talks about the benefits for her because she's a petite woman. It's easier for her to. The gun fits in her hand better, and just ergonomically, this is the gun for her. She really enjoys it, and he got a chance to play around with it, and he's finding that he enjoys it quite a bit as well, and he's actually considering selling one of his Safe Queens, a gun that's been collecting dust in his safe for quite a while, and picking up a Kahr CW9 for a couple of reasons. He says that there's sort of an old adage that when you handle a gun, if it feels like you're shaking someone's hand and it fits perfectly, that that's the gun for you. And he talks about how well this gun fit in his hand, and that he was going to pick himself one up for a couple of reasons. One, because it was really comfortable for him, he enjoyed shooting it, and then he talked a little bit about redundancy and having multiple of the same weapons. So if for whatever reason his wife's gun ever went down, needed to be sent in for repairs, and needed something for whatever reason, she could take his and he could carry a backup or something like that, and that redundancy would make it easier for her in the event that her gun went down. And I thought it was a really good post and really interesting, in part because Kahr is something that's been recommended to me over and over and over again, sort of ad nauseum. It's I've had numerous people tell me, you got that stupid little bodyguard, it's too small to shoot accurately, this, that, and the other thing. You should go for something a little bigger, like the Kahr CW9, or if you want something a little less expensive, they have the CM9 now. And I've always looked into it and kind of been intrigued by the 9mm of this size. However, Miguel makes note that it's similar in size to the Ruger LC9, and due to redundancy, he's looking at the CW9, right? Yes, I always get the CW9 and CM9 mixed up, but he's talking about getting a CW9 for redundancy's sake, so that you don't have to learn a new firearm and things like that. So, it's sort of opening my eye again. Actually, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but my brother picked up a single stack small frame 9mm recently, and I was kind of jealous. One, because he got a new gun and I didn't, but I really like the size. It's smaller than my 40, my Springfield XD subcompact. It fits the hand a little nicer. It's easier to conceal. It's a smaller frame gun, easier to carry, things like that. And after Miguel talks about how comfortable and how nice this gun was to shoot, I'm kind of intrigued. And I'm sort of going back and forth looking at the differences between the CW9 and the CM9. The CM9 looks to be shorter in the grip, shorter in the barrel by not by much. I think it's like 9/16 or something like that roughly. But the price is a bit stiff on them. The CM9 MSRP is $517. The CW9 is MSRP is $485. Generally, you don't pay MSRP, at least not in this area. So I'd have to get out and look at a couple of the shops to see what they're priced at. But it's very intriguing. If I had some extra cash, I certainly might consider it. But all in all, Miguel does a great job of talking about this gun and how it works for him. And it's well worth reading if you're in the market for a smaller frame 9mm carry gun. So head over to Gun Free Zone and check it out. Well, for the cigar and drink pairing this episode, I have a cigar that's kind of cheating a little bit. Way back in episode 3 of Shooting the Breeze, I did a cigar and drink pairing with Johnny Walker Black and the EP Carrillo Edition Limitada 2010. Now, in that cigar and drink pairing, I made mention that the Edición Limitada 2010 was later rebranded the Elencos, which is what I'm smoking now. Now, from what I'm told, that limited edition release was so popular and there was such a demand for it that EP Carrillo had to figure out a way to make it standard production. And they did just that and rebranded it the Elencos. Now, I'm not quite sure what the pricing is on the Elencos. I really don't remember. I picked up a 5-pack of these, and I started smoking through them. They're really enjoyable. This one was the first one of this batch that I picked up, and it's tremendously loose. I'm not a big fan of torpedo-shaped cigars, cigars with a tapered head. The reason being is, more often than not, I find that they're too tight. Like, my speculation is that not enough tobacco is taken out of the head, and then it's put in the press and it's compressed really tight into that shape. Then when you clip the cigar, you get this really tight condensed patch of tobacco that it's hard to get smoke through. So I tend to gravitate away from them. I didn't realize that I got torpedoes, but I did. And this one is beautifully. I'm getting just a fantastic smoke volume. It's nice and thick. Coats the palate really well. It's nice and full-bodied, but it has a really nice balance of flavor and power. This isn't something that's going to make you feel sick or green if you smoke it too early in the day. I wouldn't smoke it much before lunch, but it makes for a really nice cigar. Toward the end of the day, it's got enough power to cut through dinner, and it just works on the palate. The flavor profile is sort of savory. It's a little salty. It's got some nice spice in it. It's got a little bit of like black pepper sort of flavor. The finish is a little on the dry side. It does leave you just feeling a touch parched, but all in all, I think it's a fantastic cigar. I really enjoy them, and would certainly recommend picking them up if you ever have the opportunity. I'm pairing this with water, by the way. There's really no real reason to talk about the water. It's just water. But if you're interested in trying the EP Carrillo Elencos, my suggestion would be to contact my preferred retailer, which is Mike down at Buckhead Cigar in Atlanta, Georgia, which is like from where Mike's at, it's like a stone throw away from the Glock factory. Mike's phone number, you can pick up the phone, give him a call, talk pricing, order cigars, whatever you want to do at 404-844-0400. Mike has a website, askthecigarguys.com. It's where he lists new product, things that he sort of has on sale. He lists pricing. It's not a retail site. You go there, you look up the pricing on newer product, pick up the phone, you call him, and that's how you order. If you just want to kind of shoot the breeze with him, get a feel for him and his business, you can do so on Twitter at Buckhead Cigar. Mike is also on Facebook and Google Plus as Buckhead Cigar. And so do me a favor, support my preferred retailer and a fellow gun guy as well. For the discussion topic this week, I have something that's kind of interesting. I've had this dirty little secret that I've sort of been keeping to myself for quite a while now, and up until recently, and this little secret is, up until recently, I had never attended a gun show. I think I just heard the collective gasp of all the listeners, all 12 of you, and you're probably wondering, well, any self-respecting gun guy has probably been to a dozen gun shows. What's the deal with that? Well, the truth of the matter is, I've always had a bit of an interest in going to a gun show. However, when I've talked to people, I've always heard mixed things about gun shows. You've got some people that say that they're awesome. You can get great deals on product, and it's a lot of fun to walk around and check out the sites, all the various tables. And then I've had other people that tell me, don't waste your time going to a gun show. The prices aren't any better than your local shops, and if you don't go into the gun show knowing what you want and having researched the product, you're just going to get ripped off, and it's just an unpleasant place to be. And and then of course you've got the news media telling you that you've got people selling and buying illegal guns and all this other weird crazy stuff, which isn't true, obviously. But I've been driving back and forth to work over the last couple of weeks, and I've been driving past the same billboard constantly for this gun show in the Reading area. And I thought, you know what, it's so close to home, I should definitely check it out. I mean, admission is like $7, and if anything, it'll be an excuse to spend a couple of hours looking at guns. So I started talking to a couple of friends, and one regular listener, Corey, and I made arrangements to meet up at the gun show. So at that point, it was kind of a lock. I was going to go and meet up with Corey and check out the show. And the day before, I was talking to my brother on the phone, and I mentioned that I was going to a gun show, and he sort of got all excited about it. Hey, I'll go too. So I met up with Corey, I met my brother there, and we started walking around. The show was put on by Eagle Arms, and I believe there were 500 tables there. I paid my $7 admission. I forgot to print out the $1 off coupon to save a little money, but I went, I paid my $7, I go in and I start looking around, and my first impression was, wow, if I ever wanted to reenact a war, this is the place to go. I mean, there are just World War II guns, there's SKSs, there's Mosin Nagants everywhere. I mean, as far as the eye can see is all this older, interesting war memorabilia type stuff. I've always been interested in World War II, and seeing some of this stuff was pretty interesting. Seeing this older stuff and these guns that I had never fired and had only read about, I've never seen, which was was really cool. There were a lot of ARs and AR parts, a lot of accessories, clothing, helmets, ammunition, this, that, and the other thing, just sort of gun paraphernalia. But I really did enjoy myself. I went up and down every single aisle. I looked at every table. And, I started to see both sides of the argument, where people were talking about astronomical prices. I definitely saw that. And then I definitely saw the steals on guns. When I was shopping around for a Glock, I was seeing, $479 to $550. Here at the gun show, I was seeing, used Glock. I saw a used Glock 19 that looked like it was in pristine condition. No scuff marks on the frame. No wear marks on the barrel or on the slide. It just looked beautiful for $400. If I had a spare $400 and I needed a Glock 19, I would have bought it on the spot. It seemed like a great price for the gun. There were a couple of retailers there taking advantage of out-the-door pricing. I love seeing that. Seeing a sticker, X number of dollars for this out the door, tax, transfer, all that stuff included. That's awesome. I love seeing something and knowing exactly what I'm going to pay for it, not having to tally up and guess what the tax and transfer and things like that are going to be. So I saw a good mix of great deals and things that weren't so great. There were a lot of people walking around with long guns slung over their shoulder with these sort of like handmade flags. It looked like a long dowel rod was slid down the barrel, and then on the end there was sort of like a duct tape little flag, for sale, X number of dollars. This is what it is. That was kind of cool. I talked to one guy that was walking around with a gun just because it looked interesting. I didn't have the $1,200 he wanted for whatever he was carrying, but it was interesting nonetheless. And I looked at a couple of things. There was a guy there that was selling a ton of hand-loaded ammunition. It was a good thing I didn't pick any of it up. The price looked great on it, but a few aisles over, there was a guy selling factory rounds for the same price. So, my buddy Corey picked up some reloaded stuff and was kind of kicking himself when he saw the table with the factory stuff for the same price. So, I learned one lesson. That's definitely make the rounds, see the entire show before you decide on purchasing anything. Even if something looks to be a spectacular deal, definitely make the rounds, take in everything, and then go back and make your purchase. This way you're not kicking yourself when you see factory ammo priced the same as reloaded stuff. But I had a really good time. My brother ended up buying he's been in the market for a gun for a little while now, and he's on kind of a fairly tight budget. And he was looking at things. He had his eye on that Glock 19 a little bit, and he opted to save a little bit of money, and he purchased a Taurus 709 Slim, which I got to play with at the show. We took it back to my place. I was kind of looking at it a little bit. We didn't get out to shoot it, but it looks like a solid gun. I've been really interested in Taurus ever since the announcement of Jesse Harrison Duff was picked up on the shooting team. It sort of opened my eyes to the brand, and I'm really interested in it. It's sort of like a value-priced brand, again, there are a lot of people that hate it, and then there's the same number of people that love the brand. So, I told my brother everything I knew about the brand itself. We looked everything over, and I gave him my opinion, and he picked it up. And I'm really happy for him. I can't wait to get out to the range and give it a shot. But it left me a little jealous. He came home with a gun. I didn't. I didn't have a couple $100 in my pocket to spend at the gun show. I was just going to look, but I'm a little jealous, just a little bit, that I didn't walk out with a gun. But I had a really good time, and would definitely recommend that if you haven't been to a gun show, definitely check it out. But do your homework. Make sure that you go there. If you're going looking for something, if you're planning on buying a gun, get some background on it, know what you should pay locally, and make sure you look at all of the tables. You don't want to jump on a gun at one table and then find out that 2 rows over this guy's selling it for $40 less. So it's it's really that goes along with anything in life. Do some research before you go in and make the purchase. But I had a really good time. I can't wait to go back to another one. I really did enjoy myself, and I got to see a lot of cool stuff. It was a good 3 hours of walking and talking and looking at guns. So all in all, great experience. Very happy to have attended my first gun show, and I'd recommend you check one out if you haven't already. Well, it's about time to wrap up the podcast. It looks like I'm on par with that time that I was trying to achieve, 45 minutes to an hour. It looks like I'm just over 40 minutes now. I feel almost like I'm cheating you a little bit by producing what felt like a fast-paced, shorter show, but it worked out great time-wise, and maybe I'll try to condense them just a little bit in the future so that they don't get too long and drawn out. But before I let you go, I want to thank you for watching or listening to, downloading, and subscribing to episode 34 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. If you have a question, comment, any of that sort of stuff, you can contact me in a variety of ways. I'm all over social media. I'm on Twitter as @WaltW, Facebook and Google Plus as Walt White. My blog has a Facebook page, which is Walt in PA. I am on the Gun Rights Radio Network forum. I have a Shooting the Breeze section. If you'd like to send me an email, question, comment, just personal back and forth banner, you can do so via email. My email is walt@waltinpa.com. If that's a little too much for you and you'd rather just punch some stuff into a text box, you can head over to waltinpa.com, which is my blog, and I would highly recommend. And you can click on the contact button. There's a contact form. Just put your information in there, click send, and it will be delivered right to me. You don't have to worry about getting the email address correct or anything like that. Again, I'm going to be running these contests sponsored by StogieReview.com. One contest a month for the next 12 months. I'm leaning heavily towards the Shoot Your Guide to Shooting in Competition from Julie Golub. Keep an eye on WaltInPA.com for details on how to enter and rules and things like that. It's not going to be the same contest every month. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do for the first one yet, but if you're listening to this on Tuesday, ideally when I publish this thing, I'm hoping to have something posted before Friday. If it's after Friday and you're listening to this, head over to the blog and look through the last couple of articles, and you should see a contest post there. So again, thank you for watching or listening, and I will catch you later.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.